And now watching this show, I feel very sick. And and I'm looking at 6,000 people all breathing on me. And I'm feeling a little worse than I did when when I gotta go now because I don't feel very well.
And he's not wearing gloves either.
Thank you, Doctor.
I'm not going to take a second.
Have a good afternoon, everybody.
That I know, listen, you've been able to reinvent yourself over and over again, which is what we really are looking for in our lives. That to me is success. And I want to thank him for taking a few moments. He's actually playing, he's got a matinee and evening program today. He just came by to watch a little bit of the event, and I thought it'd just be nice to have him say hi to you all from this perspective. But I have been thinking a lot about what to say to you. And I'm going to say up front that the purpose of this is not to give you information. It's to get you to change your lives. Meaningful change means meaningful change. It means transforming your life in ways that a lot of you probably haven't thought about for quite some time. So what I'm going to do today is take you through my office. This is my office. And allow you to see what it might feel like. What it might feel like if you took your health in a different direction. This is what's happening in America. We're pushing as hard as we can on that door to health, and it's not opening. It's not opening. Part of it is because we don't know the biology of what drives change in our bodies, and part of it is we're not taking the time to read those lessons. Let me give you an example. This is what a healthy human lung looks like. You see how it's pink and wide and looks spectacular like that? You can see how fluffy it is, how airy it is. It looks like clouds. This is what a smoker's lung looks like. See the dark tar areas? You see the top where it looks like it's been eaten away by moths? That's called emphysema. Emphysema. Now think about this. When you see someone who's a smoker, when you tell them they shouldn't smoke, you're wasting your time and you're wasting their time because they know that already. If you show it to them, which is what I try to do sometimes, at least they have that visceral awareness of why their cigarettes are actually damaging them. And they can think about it differently. This is why years ago I pledged never to operate on a smoker. Do you know why? Because I love them. I care about them. My only chance to stop them from smoking is before I operate on them. So on Thursdays when I'm up at New York Presbyterian Columbia operating, doing my surgeries, I think about this. I think to myself, what can I say to change your mind about something you want to do but haven't been able to do? I'm going to come back to that theme in a second. Osteoporosis, same basic concept. On the left side, you see the very thick, nice bone. On the right side, that osteoporotic bone. It's sort of worn down, it's thinned out. So how do you treat this? Well, you can give medications for it, right? There are all kinds of things I can offer to you, but what works more than anything else is resistance training, right? Lifting it up. That little bit of activity, which most of us don't do after we hit our third decade of life, it changes the equation dramatically. All right, let's talk about my specialty, hardening of the arteries. Now, atherosclerosis is a process where you literally deposit stuff, junk, residue. But what it really is rusting away of our insides. Now, in this picture, you see that little plaque in the big tube called the aorta. But on the right side, you have a normal big plump kidney. On the left side, it's shrunken and small. That itty-bitty kidney is dead. Because the blood that was going to it closed off. See that artery? It's thrombosed. It's got clot in it. The kidney was starved. There are many people in this audience right now who have lost one of their kidneys and they don't even know it. Because you only need one kidney to live. That's why you can donate a kidney. But when it happens to both of your kidneys, that's big problems. So how do you know what's going to happen? Let me bring this alive to you with an animation. This is what's happening in the inside of arteries all over this country. You're 18 years of age. That little yellow plaque begins to grow. 22, 23 gets larger. Slowly the plaque begins to get big. By the time you're in your 40s, it's gotten really large. And all of a sudden, well, it ruptures. One day it ruptures. Now you have this raw, open sore, this plaque inside the blood vessels. And on top of that, you start to deposit a clot. Because when you have a cut in the body anywhere, you want to form a clot on it. That clot gets larger and larger and larger. And kaboom! Right there. You saw the leading cause of death in the Western world. That's what a heart attack looks like. Now, some of you might be a little scared by that image. But I don't want you to be. What I just showed you should be terribly empowering. Because it turns out that that clot formed over minutes, hours, maybe a day after the plaque rupture, which means you control that, which means who you fought with this morning and what you eat this afternoon can change the chance of you're having a heart attack tomorrow. That's why number one time for a heart attack is Monday morning. So you're getting close. I bring that up because if it's something that was inevitably happening to you, that would happen over years and you couldn't reverse it, we wouldn't find that. But we know these things happen quickly, and it turns out you control them. Women in particular, but men too, when you change things that are going on in your life, you reverse most of the big illnesses that we're talking about. Some of them you get rid of for good, some of them you just make them a lot better. And I'm going to talk about some of those today. But don't forget this imagery, because I'm going to come back to it over and over again. Let's start off with the big risk factors. You control 70% of how well and how long you live. Think about that. 70% of it, 2/3 of it. A little bit, 1/3 genetic. But you have the ability, if you focus on 5 factors, these are the first 4. Blood pressure. Why 150 over 75? That's the optimal number. Now, a lot of you think, okay, I'm not hypertensive. If I'm not hypertensive, I'm good to go. But it turns out that hypertension, 140 over 90, is bad, but the average, which is 130 over 85, isn't good enough. What happens to the average American? We die of a heart attack. You don't want to be average. You want to be optimal. 115 over 75. Now, here's why it's important. Remember the animation I just showed you with the blood vessel closing off with the blood clot? Okay, here's how that happens. The very beginning, that little yellow plaque that I talked about, it starts because somebody punches a hole in the artery. So if I want to punch a hole in a wall back there, how would I fix that hole? I'd have to put plaster in it, right? I put high-quality plaster in that hole. I get a nice, pretty repair. No one can tell anything was wrong. If I put a lousy repair in there, it crackles and fizzles out, and I can see the defect. What's the body's plaster? It's cholesterol. When you have cholesterol, that's not the good kind, because you're eating the wrong foods, like foods with lots of fats in them, or you're overweight, whatever the reason is. You put junky cholesterol in there. You have this hole, which is therefore fixed with junky stuff. It clots, it cracks. You get that clot formation. That's what causes the problem. Now think back. Now you know why the cholesterol is a problem, but what makes the hole? The punch is the blood pressure. It's like a high-powered water pick or a garden hose or a fire hydrant that's burst. It's blasting away with hard pressure on that very delicate Teflon-like lining of the artery that ripped away tissue's got to heal itself. That's where the plaster comes in, the cholesterol. So if you stop the hole, you never have to worry about the rest of it. That's number one. Number one risk factor of all. Number one driver of aging. If your blood pressure's high, 10 years shorter life expectancy than not. Number 2, cigarettes. I've talked about them, talked about the motivation a little bit. Turns out to be a very important issue because it rips away the delicate lining as well. But let's talk about how we address cigarette smoking, because I think it's a metaphor for all the other problems you may face. If the person you love is drinking too much, if they're overweight, if they're not doing the things they should do, if they're not showing up in their own lives, how do you get them to change? I would argue you don't do it by telling them they're doing the wrong thing. They know that already. You do it by asking them one simple favor. All I want you to do is to love yourself as much as I care for you. When you phrase it that way, it's not accusative, it's not prescriptive. You're getting down to the root issue, which is the emotions of why we don't change. Can I just share something with you that Oprah taught me a long time ago, and I think it is true, and I've seen it on my show over and over again? People don't change what they do based on what they know. They change what they do based on how they feel. If we can get into the emotional reasons why people aren't doing the right thing, it changes everything. If we can go from being up here, having knowledge, to this deep visceral awareness of why it matters, people change. That's why when people around you are sick, you change, because you care about them. That's why when you talk to folks about their kids, you talk to folks about their vision, their future, their hopes, their desires, all those take them to a different place in their life. Topic number 3, physical activity. You don't have to run triathlons. I'm talking about 30 minutes of basic activity a day. When we go around the world and look where people live the longest, they have different types of social structures, they eat different kinds of foods, but guess what? In every one of these places that people live a long time in, they have daily, vigorous physical activity. What kills Americans is not just cancer and heart disease and all those things.